Okay, so today I'll be reacting to this video. Sacha Cohen rips Facebook and other social media giants. This is his speech at the ADL. I don't know what it stands for. I think it's Anti Defamation League. Yeah. So this is from Now This News. I'm not going to react to the whole thing because it's a 24-minute video. And so yeah, I just wanted to give my opinions on it for a bit. See if I can go first.
If Facebook were around in the 1930s, it would have allowed Hitler to post 30-second ads on his solution to the Jewish problem.
It would also allow Hitler's if it was like a neutral site and if it was a neutral platform, it would also allow Hitler's opponents to have a platform as well.
So here's a good standard and practice. Facebook, start fact-checking political ads before you run them.
No. This is because Facebook's job is not to fact check. It is not a publisher, it is a platform. All it's supposed to do is supposed to give a platform to the people who it's giving its service to. And who is it going to fact check? What authorities are you going to use, right? For example, when YouTube started saying they were gonna delete videos that went against authoritative sources like WHO. I mean, the WHO was wrong on the COVID as well. They said that initially they said coronavirus would not spread. It couldn't transmit, even though Taiwan said it could. So this is a really slippery slope. That's the point. It's not supposed to fact check. It's just supposed to give them a platform. And it's yeah, the people in the service as well. Like if someone's blatantly saying something wrong on the website, then the its users is also allowed to fact check itself. It's not up to the site itself, the platform to fact check it, because it's not their job. All they're supposed to do is generate a platform.
Today, around the world, demagogues appeal to our worst instincts. Conspiracy theories, once confined to the fringe, are going mainstream. Hate crimes are surging.
I don't actually have the facts on this, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I'll see later if that statistic is true, if hate crimes are surging.
As are murderous attacks on religious and ethnic minorities. All this hate and violence is being facilitated by a handful of internet companies that amount to the greatest propaganda machine in history. I believe that it's time for a fundamental rethink of social media.
Agreed. Social media should not be interfering in what the users in its platform do in terms of speech and ideas. I think that's a very slippery slope. And I think when it comes to stuff like censoring people for hate speech is a very subjective term. And I don't think I want a couple of tech giants having a monopoly on free speech and telling people what they can and cannot say.
And how it spreads hate, conspiracies, and lies. Last month, however, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook delivered a major speech that, not surprisingly, warned against new laws and regulations on companies like his. Well, some of these arguments are simply, pardon my French, bull. Let's count the ways. First, Zuckerberg tried to portray this whole issue as choices around free expression.
Now, I don't know if Mark Zuckerberg is actually consistent on this or if he actually said this, but if he said this, then yeah, he's right. But I don't know if he's actually been consistent on this issue when it comes to what he's doing. But yeah.
That is ludicrous. This is not about limiting anyone's free speech.
It is, though. It is. You're giving these companies the right to have a monopoly on free speech and decide what is hate speech and what isn't. I don't want a tech giant telling me what I can and can't say. Look, people say that the real world is not Twitter, but it's ludicrous to think that is not a big Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. They are huge places for political discourse, right? When in cable news, only a couple of people have the right to say what they want. They have the right to say their opinion, right? In Twitter, the average person can just log into have a Twitter account and start posting tweets. Right? This is my first video, right? This video may do well, this may not do well. I'm not entirely sure. But this is a much bigger platform for me. And if people, I don't know if people will see this or not, but still, I have a large platform, and I wouldn't have this platform anywhere else. So you're trying to tell me that if these people are censoring opinions Right? It's not a monopoly on free speech. It is. These entire tech giants are now so big they have a monopoly on free speech. And now they have the right to censor what speech they don't want and what they want and don't want. That's exactly the problem.
This is about giving people, including some of the most reprehensible people on earth, the biggest platform in history to reach a third of the planet. Freedom of speech is not freedom of reach.
But if there's a platform that technically gives an equal reach to everyone, like a potentially equal reach to everyone, censoring that person in order to not achieve as big of a reach is actually censorship.
Sadly, there will always be racists, misogynists, anti-Semites, and child abusers.
There will also be people who are against them.
But I think we can all agree that we should not be giving bigots and pedophiles a free platform.
Okay, this is a slippery slope, right? When it comes to pedophiles, yes, because to a reasonable extent, you can tell who's a pedophile and who's not, right? I mean, it's to a degree subjective, maybe. Some people may disagree, but overall, it's largely people will accept what a pedophile is or not. But bigots, right? That's a very subjective term. How do you define a bigot? Like for some people, for example, Ben Shapiro may be a bigot, but I don't think Ben Shapiro is a bigot. You can't just say we should not be giving bigots a platform because you can't really define a bigot. It's a very, very subjective term, unlike pedophiles, which I guess most can agree when someone's blatantly like going on like children's Facebook account and saying some explicitly sexual things about them, then yes, we can to a degree say that they are like pedophiles, right? Unless they're saying it as a joke. But again, pedophiles is a much less subjective thing than bigots.
To amplify their views and target their victims. Second, Mark Zuckerberg claimed that new limits on what's posted on social media would be to pull back on free expression.
Yes.
This is utter nonsense. We're not asking these companies to determine the boundaries of free speech across society. We just want them to be responsible.
Okay, again, these companies are one of these tech, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. These are some of the biggest places for political discourse, right? By censoring them, they have a monopoly on free speech, like I said, right? They have a monopoly on speech. Once they start drawing arbitrary lines on what speech is permissible or not, yes, that is censorship, and that is a big problem because these are such big platforms.
On their platforms. Third, Mark Zuckerberg seemed to equate regulation of companies like his to the actions of the most repressive society.
To a degree, that's true, yes, because censorship does happen in large societies. However, maybe not to this degree, but still, censorship is still censorship.
Incredible. This from one of the 6 people who decide what information so much of the world sees.
Yes, exactly, which is why they shouldn't have even more of a monopoly on speech.
Here's an idea. Instead of letting the Silicon Six decide the fate of the world, let our elected representatives, voted for by the people of every democracy in the world, have at least some say.
In what speech? Right, so you're replacing tech authoritarianism with government authoritarianism, and that isn't going to solve anything.
Fourth, Zuckerberg speaks of welcoming a diversity of ideas.
Now, again, I don't know if he's been consistent on this, what he's been saying and what he's been doing on Facebook. But yes, if Zuckerberg is actually open to welcoming a diversity of ideas, then yes, I agree with him. Diversity is good, if it's diversity of ideas, especially.
And last year he gave us an example. He said that he found posts denying the Holocaust deeply offensive, but he didn't think Facebook should take them down because I think there are things that different people get wrong.
Yes, because Mark Zuckerberg's job as the owner of Facebook is to provide a platform. He's not supposed to be fact checking what people are doing on his site, right?
To quote Edward R. Murrow, one cannot accept that there are on every story 2 equal and logical sides to an argument.
You are allowed to be wrong. You have the freedom to be wrong. And you have the freedom to be illogical. That's the point.
We have, unfortunately, millions of pieces of evidence for the Holocaust.
That's not the point. The Holocaust did happen, but people are allowed to say they don't believe that it happened. That's the beauty of freedom.
It is an historical fact.
I don't dispute that.
And denying it is not some random opinion. Those who deny the Holocaust aim to encourage another one. Fifth, when discussing the difficulty of removing content, Mark Zuckerberg asked, where do you draw the line?
Exactly, where do you draw the line?
Yes, drawing the line can be difficult. But here's what he's really saying. Removing more of these lies and conspiracies is just too expensive.
How do you know he's saying that?
The truth is, these companies won't fundamentally change because their entire business model relies on generating more engagement, and nothing generates more engagement than lies, fear, and outrage. Finally, Zuckerberg said that social media companies should live up to their responsibility.
Yes, their responsibilities as a platform and not a publishing site.
But he's totally silent about what should happen when they don't. By now, it's pretty clear they cannot be trusted to regulate themselves. As with the Industrial Revolution, it's time for regulation and legislation to curb the greed of these high-tech robber barons.
Right, again, replacing government tech authoritarianism with government authoritarianism. No one should have a monopoly on free speech. That's the point.
In his speech, Zuckerberg said that one of his main goals is to uphold as wide a definition of freedom of expression as possible.
Again, I don't know if he's been consistent on that with his actions, but yes, he's right. People should have freedom of expression. It's a good thing.
It sounds good.
Yes, it does.
Yet our freedoms are not only an end in themselves, they're also the means to another end. As you say here in the US, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But today these rights are threatened by hate, conspiracies, and lies.
They're also threatened by tech tyrants who want to who already have a monopoly on speech, who want to draw arbitrary lines in order to censor people. Again, when it comes to stuff like drawing the line, right? Clementine Ford, a feminist, has repeatedly said, kill all men, kill all men. I hope the coronavirus kills men. But Milo Yiannopoulos gets banned from Twitter when he says that a woman looks like a man. You see the problem with this, right? Biases come up, and you're going to have. Twitter has a liberal bias, so it's going to censor people who are conservative. But there may just well be a social media site which may have a right-leaning bias and will censor people on the left. And this is why social media companies should not have this much monopoly on speech.
The ultimate aim of society should be to make sure that people are not targeted, not harassed, and not murdered.
Being targeted is different from having different opinions. When someone is directly calling for the death of someone, or someone is like doxing them, again, that it's terms of service. But yes, you can define these kind of things. You can define stuff like pornography to a reasonable degree. You can define stuff like pedophilia. But hate speech, you can't really define it, because what's hate speech for someone, it may not be hate speech for someone else.
Because of who they are, where they come from, who they love, or how they pray.
The best way to combat bad speech is good speech. That's what Jimmy Dore said, and I 100% agree with him.
If we make that our aim, if we prioritize truth over lies, tolerance over prejudice, empathy over indifference, and experts over ignoramuses, then maybe just...
What if the experts are wrong? I said WHO was wrong. And secondly, this is it's people can use this as an excuse to just drown our independent media. I mean, think about this logically. When it comes to stuff like fact checking, is CNN ever going to get banned? Fox News, MSNBC, will they ever get banned if they say false stuff? No. It's because these are corporate powers, and these are the so-called authoritative sources, right? And so this is the way to drown out independent media. And it's not like these news sites anyway do a lot of fact checking anyway, right? They're the blatant propaganda machines.
Maybe we can stop the greatest propaganda machine in history.
The mass media. That's the greatest propaganda machine. What's also the greatest propaganda machine is the social media sites, which is censoring people who they disagree with and having a monopoly over free speech.
We can save democracy.
We're not going to save democracy by making hate speech laws, buddy.
We can still have a place for free speech and free expression.
Again, you're giving them more power You're giving them even more power than they already have over speech, right? How do you know that they won't censor free speech and free expression? They're already doing that to a large degree.
And most importantly, my jokes will still work.
What if Facebook and Twitter decide to ban scenes from your movie because they make offensive jokes? Now, don't get me wrong, I think Sacha Baron Cohen's comedy is really, really funny. But you see the problem with this, right? They shouldn't have a monopoly on what people are allowed to say and what they're not allowed to say. And I know I'm repeating this a lot, but I want to emphasize that point, right? But it's a subjective matter as to what's offensive and what's not offensive. And I don't want tech giants or tech engineers to decide what's not offensive and what's offensive and have a monopoly on speech.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, those are my views, and thanks for watching.